Welcome back to the Burr Investor Podcast, where our mission is to empower aspiring real estate investors in their journey towards building generational wealth. Our guest today is Ralf Mann, entrepreneur and president of Next Pitch TV. Over the years, Ralf founded more than 12 companies in different industries, including high-tech, consumer products, and software. His last company, Next Pitch TV, was originally founded in 2016 to create the first interactive show where the crowd could support early-stage startups through equity crowdfunding. Their slogan is Shark Tank for everyone. Ralf, thank you for being here today. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Before we get started, Ralf, can you tell the audience and the listeners a little bit about you?
I'm originally from Germany. And when I was 10 years old, we moved to the Bahamas, and that's where I started to learn English. And but only 2 years later, my parents moved back, but they sent me to boarding school in the United Kingdom. So I'm the beneficiary of a British education. And anyway, after that time, I went to Duke University in North Carolina and studied history and political science. Fascinating subjects, totally useless unless you want to go into academia. So that was a bit of a problem. But I had a chance to go to Japan for a couple of years, which I did.
Interesting.
Thoroughly enjoyed it, except if you want to start a business, not the place to do that, especially if you're a foreigner and don't necessarily have the resources. So I found a Japanese company that was willing to sponsor me to come to the US. And so my first company was called Interpet West. And it was basically importing the pet cages of the company that sponsored me. But I learned pretty quickly that, boy, you better identify with whatever you're doing. And though I love pets, I did not particularly like pet cages. They're bulky, you have to inventorize them, quantities for sale were relatively small, just not my cup of tea. So I learned pretty quickly that was not the way to go. And so when I had an opportunity to go into promotional products, in this case, customized watches and clocks, it's kind of like, ooh, these are small. That means I don't need much inventory because they were custom produced with the customer's name on the dial, etc. They could also be brought in by air freight, so no storage issues on that. That was the way to go. And I have to admit also the fact that there's a network of resellers that sold all these promotional products, but I didn't have to sell, at least not in the traditional way. That was just up my alley. And that's exactly what I ended up doing as my biggest company, actually, which was called EuropaWatch.com, or became EuropaWatch.com. Well, we did over 1 million timepieces a year, so it was fairly substantial.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you've done quite a few things. You've learned a lot along the way, I bet. And now it's Next Pitch TV, right? Mm-hmm. So what led you to start Next Pitch TV?
Well, I started a whole bunch of companies because I have a lot of interests, and I come from a very entrepreneurial family. And so in 2015, I met Howard Marks, the co-founder of Start Engine, one of the most prominent platforms in equity crowdfunding. And he told me about the equity crowdfunding becoming legal in 2016. Okay. I thought, damn, this is really cool. Finally, you can actually get funding from the crowd. That is something that really is of interest to me. So I decided, boy, this is what happens if you have one of the first campaigns on the first day that it goes live. But you're sure to get some publicity, at least that was the hope. So sure enough, I had one of the first campaigns on the first days it went live. That's May 16th, 2016. The only problem is that the company is called NextRx, and we did software for the medical marijuana patient management. So when the escrow bank found out about it, they said, what industry? Cannabis? Oh, God, no, we can't possibly do this. So they had to literally take the campaign down after 2 days.
Wow.
But I did get front page LA Times coverage. Cannabis crowdfunding campaign goes up in smoke. It wasn't the article that I was looking for. But hey, any coverage is good, I suppose. But what this did is ultimately led me to get really interested in the concept of equity crowdfunding, which, for the benefit of your audience, to make it very clear, we're all familiar with Indiegogo and Kickstarter, which is rewards-based crowdfunding. Okay. That's great. You know, there's an invention, let's say. You're in effect pre-purchasing the invention, And at the end of the day, you hopefully get the result, meaning whatever that invention is, and they have prepaid it, that's good, and that's the beginning and the end of the relationship. Equity crowdfunding, you're not even getting that. You're getting, theoretically, a piece of paper, i.e. stock, in a startup that has barely been around. There's no meaningful numbers typically because it's only 6 months or a year old. So it's a very different scheme, but we're also looking at people not investing $100,000, but 100, 500, maybe 1,000. So the name of the game is to get a large crowd with modest investments.
Okay.
That is what makes equity crowdfunding something that I find very fascinating.
And you seem extremely passionate about it as well. Would I be wrong?
Oh, definitely. Primarily because for all of my startups, except for NextRx, equity crowdfunding wasn't available. So in my case, that meant bootstrapping. And, when you bootstrap, boy, it sure takes a lot longer to reach altitude, shall we say. So the whole idea of both getting funding and supporters from the crowd, wow, that is a real game changer. So I was very excited by this, and I thought, damn, one of my favorite shows is Shark Tank. What's the problem with Shark Tank? Nothing, except it's a one-way show. Mm-hmm. You get to enjoy it, and that's the beginning and the end. Wouldn't it be cool if the audience could actually hit the button, meaning for $100 or $500 or whatever? Damn, that is a real game changer in my mind. So that is why I decided to start Next Pitch. The only problem is that the issue of timing. It was a whole new industry. I didn't know how fast it was going to grow at that time. So when I started Next Pitch originally in 2016, well, there were only 132 campaigns for the first year. Well, if you're trying to be selective in terms of the campaigns that you're featuring, that isn't enough, especially at the time it was going to be 10 campaigns per month.
Okay.
Well, and equity crowdfunding is kind of unique in the sense that unlike regular crowdfunding, which are typically 30, 60 days campaigns, equity crowdfunding campaigns not only can be as long as a year, but they can be extended again and again and again, which means if you're talking about the 132 campaigns, there could theoretically be 132 campaigns that go longer than a year.
Yeah.
So in other words, there wasn't enough supply ultimately to make meaningful selection. So I decided, right idea, wrong timing.
Okay.
So I put it on ice. And then back in 2022, WeFunder, one of the other major platforms, actually reached out to me and said, hey, what's the story with this Next Pitch? It's kind of, oh, good point. Well, in the meantime, we've actually tracked almost all of the Reg CF campaigns because I wanted to see how this industry would emerge. And by now, we're looking at over 500 campaigns that are live concurrently. That's a different game. In other words, the timing was right.
Okay. Big difference, that's for sure. So how has equity crowdfunding grown? Has it grown in the way you expected it to be?
Absolutely. By now, cumulatively speaking, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Okay. That is downright fascinating. And, we even have our own equivalent of Moody's. It's called kingscrowd.com.
Okay.
And what's important here is that the audience can actually track campaigns as well as see who's who and what's what and how they're doing. So the results are phenomenal. What really is amazing, though, is the relative success rate. When I say success rate, every campaign has to set a minimum target. If you don't meet the minimum target, there is no funding. But if you do, then basically you get funding, even if that's not what you're really looking for. In other words, a minimum target may be $25,000, but you're really looking to raise $500,000. However, as soon as you've reached $25,000, at least you've succeeded in the campaign, even if that's not necessarily what you want. Anyway, the number of campaigns that succeed in exceeding their minimum target is 79% last year. Wow. That's unbelievably high. And I believe that the reason for that primarily is that unlike regular crowdfunding, if you want to have a Reg CF, which is what is referred to as the lowest level, campaign, you have to file with the SEC or Security Exchange Commission. Now, even though the filing is not reviewed, there's considerable effort that has to go into that, together with, of course, creating the campaign and so forth. And I suspect that because the bar is a lot higher than with regular crowdfunding, that's one of the reasons why so many of these campaigns succeed, at least in exceeding their minimum. It's just phenomenal. And as I said, as an entrepreneur in particular, I'm fascinated by this possibility for early stage startups to get support. This is something I really admire in America. You know, when I first came here at Duke and so on, I met a gentleman who had gone through the Great Depression. And I said, "What is it that you did during the Depression?" And he put it so beautifully, "I didn't want to get paid to lean on a shovel." What does that mean? Basically, it meant he didn't want to be in the National Works Program. Okay, so what did you do? Well, I sold this kind of vacuum cleaner to second-hand car dealers. Okay, any particular place that you like to do this? Yeah, Texas. Why Texas? I said, well, when I usually came there, and to be clear, this is something that was attached to the air pressure stuff in garages at the time.
Okay.
And remember, this is in the 1930s, where a lot of garages also sold second-hand cars.
Okay.
Anyway, he'd go up to these garages and say, "Oh, I've got this wonderful vacuum cleaner and whatnot." And the typical response he got from these garage owners was something like this: "Don't believe I'd be interested, but my daddy told me to listen to what people have to say. So you got 5 minutes to make your point." The point that I'm trying to get at, this is what I consider to be a very American trait. The idea of, don't really know if I'm interested in what you're selling, but I'm going to give you a chance. If, on the other hand, I was doing this in Germany, it's kind of like, "Young man, how many of these have you sold?" "Well, you'd be my second one. Why don't you come back when you sold 100? At this rate, nobody can sell anything.
Exactly.
So it's a very different environment in this regard. So I think this is a big strength in America, which I very much like.
So people get a chance. I mean, to start up and so forth, the people have a better chance in that.
People are generally open-minded towards new things. Don't really know if it's for me, but I'm going to give you a chance. And that difference makes all the difference.
Absolutely. Are you using equity crowdfunding to raise money for Next Pitch TV?
Well, actually, ironically enough, given that that's the industry we're in, yes, we are, in that they just recently, relatively recently, in the last 2 years, authorized a new kind of campaign called Test the Waters.
Okay.
What that means is that you are able to create the campaign without registering with the SEC at this stage to literally test the waters, i.e. see how much interest there is in the campaign.
Okay.
And we did that with WeFunder, and anyone can check it out by going to nextpitch.tv and just clicking on the button. And it basically is essentially the same as a Reg CF campaign, but people make reservations instead of investments. Now, the idea essentially is for the reservations ultimately to turn into investments if the campaign goes above its minimum, which in the case of WeFunder is $50,000. But it means it's a very easy way for startups to test whether or not there's sufficient interest in their campaigns. So I'm really rather excited about this possibility even. So we'll see how that goes.
So it sounds like, you know, if somebody wants to invest or get a reservation, they go to nextpitchtv.com.
No.
Nextpitch.tv.
Yeah.
They set up a reservation. And does that mean like deposit money at that time, or like say I want to put in $500 or $1,000, for example, and then once it reaches a certain threshold, then it becomes an investment?
No. Basically what happens is you make the reservation. It's fundamentally like an investment, except you can always cancel it.
Got it.
That's point one. Point two is that only when the campaign has exceeded 50,000 do we then file to go to Reg CF, and everyone who's made a reservation is then asked, "Hey, this has now gone to this. Do you still want to convert? Do you in effect want to convert it?"
Got it.
And either yes or no. If you say no, you automatically get your money back. If you say yes, then it'll convert to an investment.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, America is really leading the way in this regard. it's delightful to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you expect to do any other, any other startups in the near future? Are there any other ideas that you're thinking of or working on?
Well, this is my biggest problem. Most entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs basically say, "Oh, wow, what's the next idea, and how do I have it?" and so on, and any younger. So, what I'm intrigued by at the moment is really to, in effect, become a kind of a mentor for future entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And I don't have to do it all myself. I've been there, done that, thank you very much. But it's very exciting to be part of the journey. So the answer ultimately is yes, I'm always open to it. Whether or not exactly it'll happen, I really don't know. But it keeps me young, or at least I like to think it keeps me young, to be involved with these hopefully path-breaking developments. And I tell you, the entrepreneurial journey is always an up and down, and as much down as it is up, unfortunately. But when it works out, it's incomparable. So satisfying.
That's amazing. Yeah, I can only imagine. So if somebody wants to connect with you, or find you, learn more about you, or check out your services, or maybe get mentored by you, what is the best way to reach you?
Probably over LinkedIn.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't have the exact address in my mind, but
it's okay.
Ralf Mandt, Ralf Mandt, pretty easy to find. I'm the only one there, but you can reach me there, and I'm always open to new ideas, and I quite frankly like to help, especially early stage startups that don't necessarily have the experience but are interested in learning.
Sure. So we're going to definitely put Ralf's information in the section down below. We'll have a little bit about his bio and ways you can reach him. So thank you so much for taking the time, Ralf. Truly appreciate it. This is great information there. Thank you all for joining us on the Burr Investor Podcast. If you found today's episode helpful, please hit like and subscribe to our channel for more real estate insights. We love hearing from you, so please leave your thoughts, questions, or topics you'd like us to cover in the comments section below. Be sure to check out our website, theburrinvestor.com, and follow us on social media at The Burr Investor. Keep learning and investing, and we'll see you in the next episode. I'm your host, Alex Nale. Stay invested.